the beauty of assessments is we all have unique qualities, right? We all have unique ways of being that are all valid. So just because you don't do things the way I do them doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I think a lot of people go to work or interact with our families or our friends with that mindset.
Welcome back to the Trust Built Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and today I've got a guest back again, a returning guest.
I feel so special.
Melanie Palmer is here with us again, and we are going to have a little bit different approach, right? Both of us do assessments, and we use that as a tool to help serve our clients. We did our assessments on each other.
It was really fun.
It was a lot of fun. I had never done CliftonStrengths before.
And I had never done DISC.
And we got a taste of each other's medicine.
We did. In the best possible way.
In the best possible way, yeah. So I want to ask, if you don't mind, do you want to go first? You want me to go first? Whatever you're comfortable
Your
with?
Your choice, Alan. I'm here for whatever.
Let's talk about my CliftonStrengths.
Yes, let's do.
Let's do that. I had never taken it before. And the 34. 34. Right?
Yes.
I was close.
Yes.
There's 34, what I called levels of strength.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Even number 34 is a strength.
That's right.
I was focused on the top 5.
Yes.
And it was not surprising. I didn't know the terms as well, but the results didn't surprise me. And I don't know if it didn't surprise me because my experience with assessments and understanding DISC the way I do, or if it's me being more self-aware.
Sure.
Or both. I don't know. I kind of wanted some feedback here.
Yeah.
With all these folks listening.
Of course.
Why would it not surprise me?
Of course. So CliftonStrengths, just in case your listeners are not familiar with it, is a strengths-based assessment. The point of it is to identify what things you naturally do well. And we're not talking about type of industry. This is not like you should be an accountant, but this is more of how do you problem solve? How do you communicate? How do you relate to other people? Strengths that would be applicable to any profession that you might go into and also in your personal life. So there are 34 strengths. It's research-based, based on 2 million interviews conducted worldwide over 20 years by Don Clifton. And 34 strengths, and you usually start with your top 5. So that's just a brief introduction. And the idea is to turn the paradigm on its head where we often talk about in our workplaces about what we don't do well. You know, you'll go into your performance evaluation, your boss will say, okay, well, here are the things that you do, this is fine, but here are the things that you need to work on, and we're going to help you be better at these things. Well, the research shows nobody is ever a well-rounded individual. Like the idea of being well-rounded is a fallacy, right? Gallup says people are stars and stars have points. And so the things that you are naturally good at, you will always be better at than you will things that you don't do naturally well. And so CliftonStrengths, the idea is that instead of focusing on shoring up your weaknesses, you should identify what you're good at and try to maximize that as much as possible. So your boss should be saying, how can we help you do more of what you're really outstanding at? And so that's why I love it, is it's a strengths-based approach, which I think is just positive and helpful, and everybody wants to do what they do best. And so to your point about why you might not be surprised, usually people feel that it suits them pretty well. I coach individuals and teams, and most people think, oh, yes, this is me. Now, I always have some people that may be a little less self-aware, especially people that are younger that haven't been around and haven't been through a lot of professional development assessments and things, that may be a little more surprised. But usually people are not shocked. What's helpful about it, though, is it gives you the language to talk about what you do well, and it gives you the confidence to advocate for yourself for what you do well. And so when I got your top 5, you and I know each other a little bit, not extremely well, but when I got your top 5, one of them, for example, is positivity, that you have a positive approach to things. And another one of your top strengths is individualization, which is a strength that you like figuring out what makes each person special. What are the unique qualities of each person? How can you treat a situation the right way for this person, individually? And so I just, in the short amount of time I've known you, I can tell that those are your top strengths, that those fit you well, because you're here on this podcast interviewing individual people because you want those stories, and everyone's story is different. And Also, I listen to your podcast, and one of the things I love about it is that you're always very positive. With all of your guests, it's got a really good positive vibe, and I love that. So those were, just in this short amount of time we've known each other, I felt like those were obvious in you.
Yeah.
So that was fun to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I looked at it as I was trying to think outside of myself. Like this was a different person, not my own. I was like, how would I handle this person, and how would I handle them as strengths in an organization? And if they were not feeling like they fit in, how would I handle that? So I was playing devil's advocate of myself because it's easy. I can pick on myself.
Sure.
And there were some situations that I theoretically put myself in that I would not thrive in.
Oh, like what?
Well, very analytical and regimented procedures where you have to follow every single rule, which is why I struggled during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
That was those types of situations. I conform, but there's an asterisk.
Is that's your individual strength coming out, right? Because you see every situation as different, every person as different. And am I saying this accurately? Like a universal rule just seems unfair.
It can be very unfair depending on the situation, in my mind. Yeah.
I have a team member that is high individualization, just like you. And then I have a team member who is high consistency, which is the opposite in a lot of ways. It's wanting to have rules that apply to everyone. And we have conversations on our team. And then I'm always thinking about this as the person that supervises both of them of, this team member thinks that the way to treat everyone fairly is to treat everyone the same. And this person with your individualization thinks the way to treat everyone fairly is to treat everyone different.
Right.
And so when you're in a leadership position and you're managing both of those people, it's an asset because, the truth is probably in the middle somewhere, right? And so you're trying to take the strengths of both of those people and, have this person help me with, okay, how can we make each person feel seen and appreciated? But this person can help me when I try to stray away from what we have agreed as a team. It's going to be our approach. She's the one that's like, Melanie, no, we have a system for this when I'm trying to fly off the handle. So those strengths, really benefit a team.
Taking that situation in the work that I do as an exit planner and a business coach, my ideal client is someone who owns a business that the business is very dependent on them. And the owner is the gap, bridging the gap between processes or people.
Oh, right.
And in that situation you just described, that can be a very dreadful from a business value standpoint, from a transferability standpoint. If the owner is constantly having to be the middleman between those two people, that just kills the business value and it prevents a lot of growth. So I want to live in this for just a minute. I do want to get to DISC and you, but let's kind of live in this because this is real world stuff.
Right.
That once you have that, so let's say we go through an assessment and you've identified these opposites that exist and there's some middle ground in there. How do you establish the bridge so that there's not a person that's constantly having to referee situation?
It's a great question. And I think there's two levels to it. I think the first level is having a strengths-based culture. So on my team and on the teams that I coach that are moving toward a strengths-based model, we are all aware that we all have strengths that are different that we're bringing to the table. And I think that sounds very simple, but people don't think about that, right? You think, oh, this coworker that always does this thing, she always asks a million questions about this thing that we've always done. She is so annoying. Instead of recognizing this person has an analytical mind, and maybe that's something that the rest of us are lacking. And so how can we plug her in to really use that? So it kind of takes those sort of differences that sometimes cause friction and it turns them into team strengths. And I think just an awareness of we all have different strengths and we know what each other's strengths are. That's what's going to help. So for example, I have a team member who always can see what's going to go wrong in every situation, right? And it's called deliberative is the strength. Like she can see, okay, whatever we're launching, whether we're doing something new, a new service or a new client, she's like, okay, this is going to go wrong. 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 Well, that could be taken as someone that's a downer. Right? I mean, if you're in a staff meeting and everyone's like, that'll never work because of this. That'll never work because of this. Have you thought about this? I mean, that can get on people's nerves, right? I was talking to a friend just earlier today who's a nonprofit executive who has this skill and she's very good at it too. But that person is, I love that on our team, because before I make a decision about what we're going to do, I send it to her first, privately, and say, can you look through this plan and tell me what the holes are? And let me plug those holes to begin with before we take it to the rest of the group. And it has strengthened what we do tremendously, because I don't have that. I'm an ideas person. I'm just like, I want to grab all the ideas and it'll be great, right? But you need that person that's like, wait, there are going to be some challenges here, and let's think about them in advance. And so I think just knowing each other's strengths and being able to plug people in where they're strong can help you all appreciate what you all do well, but also it makes the team stronger. So to your question about how do you juggle so that the owner doesn't have to be the one, mediating this, on my team, there are processes we've put in place, because my consistency person said, hey, we need a process for choosing pro bono clients. Hey, we need a process by which we onboard new clients. That's all just been in my head. But she's like, we need a process for this. So we did. So we have processes, and that's the team is stronger because of that. My other team member that has that high individualization like you, like she is the one that will tell me, hey, so-and-so is really going through a hard time because of this. Like, we need to make an exception here. Or I know this is the way we normally do it, but I know that this is going on with them, and like maybe we should have a different approach here. And she's very often right. So I think, you have to have the processes, and then you also have to have the person that can kind of be your moral compass of, hey, this is a gut check that we need to do this differently. And so I think that, and all the team understands that. Like, we all know that that's the situation. And so I think that just kind of group awareness of our strengths takes the pressure off me. They can do it without me, right?
Yeah, the way that I often explain it, because I'm a sports fan, is I use some type of sports analogy, and typically it's either basketball or football. Somebody that's really good at playing a defensive tackle is not going to be the person you pick to play running back.
Sure. Two different skills.
Completely different skill sets and abilities, and that's not where you need them on the football field. Same thing with basketball. You're not going to do a very good job if you're 7 feet tall playing point guard.
Yeah.
It's just not there for you. So plugging them into that. And that's basically what you're describing.
Yes.
And for me, a lot of business owners that I deal with, when I can connect that analogy of something, put it in a framework, just because I describe it in my mind and it's perfectly clear, I need them to hear my story in a way. And if they know sports, then I use a sports analogy. If they know something else, then I try to use these assessments and how we have strengths to describe and make sure they fully understand that it is a strength,
right?
And put it in a context that they like, oh, I know what, yes. Right.
Right. And I think just having, no matter what assessment you use, whether it's Clifton or DISC or anything, I think just having the common language on your team to be able to talk about, the ways that you're different and what you're bringing to the team is really helpful. Like, it's easy to say from a sports analogy perspective. I love baseball. I'll use baseball. Like, from a baseball, it's easy to say, oh, well, everybody does something different out there on that field. We need everybody to do something different. But if I can say, hey, I need you to catch, I need you to pitch, I need you to play right field. Like, that is just more specific and tangible to people. And so I think that's kind of what assessments do, is they give you that language. So you may not have been surprised at your top 5 strengths, may not have been something you didn't already know, but now you can, and I can have this conversation about how does your individualization show up in things like this podcast. And that helps us understand each other better.
And I guess let's pivot to your DISC.
Yes. I'd never taken DISC. This is my first DISC experience.
Yeah. To me, it didn't surprise me either. When I saw it, when I look at an assessment, I look at the what does it say first about the person, and it's in layers, which kind of to me in Clifton is the layers are the 35, the ranking of 1 through 35, and in DISC it usually does it in sentences. It doesn't necessarily do it in a numerical form. But when I saw your assessment, our assessments were very similar, which explains why we get along so well.
Yes.
So let's kind of live in that for just a moment.
Sure.
When you have someone who behaves like you do, it's easy to resonate. And the analogy I like to use there is, if you had 2 guitars next to each other, if you hit the low E string on one, the low E string on the other guitar, even if it's not touched, will start to make a sound.
Yes, it's true.
They resonate.
Yeah.
Right? And to me, in behaviors, that's what happens is when you find someone that has a similar behavioral style as you, you lean in, it resonates, and it's easier to engage and say, man, I really like Melanie. What do you like about her? I don't know. I just like her, right? And that's to me, that's what the behavioral assessments will help put a definition to why I like Melanie, right?
I love that. Yeah. Yes. Likewise.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed that was a strength, I see this as a strength, is in DISC, they do the natural style and our adaptive style.
Yes. This was my favorite part of the assessment.
And yours didn't change. It was minimal. They're very similar. And so for those that don't know, the difference between natural style and adaptive is natural is how I behave when it's sunny and 72 degrees outside and it's a Saturday afternoon and I'm going to be me, right?
Yes.
That is our natural style, how we operate, how we interact with other people. The adaptive style, the way I explain that is if you were drugged to a wedding that you didn't want to go to people that you don't even know because your husband wanted you to go and it's a work thing.
You are describing a stressful situation, Alan.
Who do you become? How do you behave in that situation? So that is the way I frame up the adaptive style. And in a work environment or in a social environment, do you shift? Do you become any different? Some people don't, and some people do quite a bit, especially if it's in the work-related and they're in a role that doesn't fit them, that right butt in the right seat type thing. You'll see the huge difference between natural and adaptive. And it allows for a conversation around, why do you feel like you're adapting?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's
so. It could be this, the task that you're doing. It could be the environment of the people in the organization. It could be a lot of things, but it creates the opportunity to have a conversation of, hey, what's up, dude? Why are we adapting? Share with me. I want to help.
Yeah.
So we're having this conversation about these tools that we use. And in my world, when I'm working with business owners, it's like a builder building the house. I don't care what kind of hammers and nails and screwdrivers he uses. I want the house built. So let's move into these tools and how it applies in our world and some examples of what it looks like to use assessments and apply it to the organization.
Sure. Well, in CliftonStrengths, one of my favorite things to do is coach a team and look at the team grid. So we put on the wall a big map, essentially, of everyone's strengths, where everyone fits. And it's fascinating to see where the team is strong. So individuals have their own top strengths. But when we put it all on the grid, we can see, your team is really heavy in relationship building strengths, or your team is really heavy in influencing strengths, or your team is really heavy in strategic thinking strengths. There's 4 domains in CliftonStrengths. And so once we see that, then we get to talk about, okay, is the work that you're doing as a team, are you using this team strength? Because your team is going to do this work different than any other team would do this work. So we're not only thinking about our individual strengths, but we're also thinking about what our team does well. And so an example of this is I serve on the board for the Arkansas Coalition Against Domestic Violence in Little Rock, and we did this CliftonStrengths team training with their team. And so we mapped out all of their strengths, and they're really heavy in relationship building strengths. Well, they're a team that primarily works remotely because they're a state-serving organization. They do a lot of things by Zoom and phone and email. But relationship build, and those are relationship building things too, but relational people tend to they want to be in person, right, with people.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we looked at strategically is, okay, since this is where you excel, in this relationship building strength, how can we get you in front of people more? Because how can we help you do this more? Because this is what you're good at. And so they've scheduled a series of in-person professional development networking meetings throughout the state this year, and we're piloting that this year. To build relationships with shelters and other service providers to get them more face time with more people, because this is where they really excel. So it's just, you can look at it from an individual of how do I maximize my strengths, but also from a team perspective.
Do you see in a situation like that? Do you see those people? Do they need physical touch, or is it just the proximity?
Not necessarily. It's more the proximity. I mean, the relationship building strengths are like, empathy and harmony and your positivity is a relationship building strength, right? Like do you find that you prefer to be in person with people rather than, and your individualization too, right? Like you want to be in person to get people's stories. And so, no, it's not necessarily about touch, but it's about that being able to read your body language, being able to see you in person, having a shared experience. People that are really good at picking up the vibe of a room, like those are your relationship building strengths. But you can only do that if you're in the room, right? It's much harder to do electronically or at a distance.
Yeah, and I find in a situation like that, I find that building trust, their key to building trust or their magic, that where they do that is around connection and compassion.
Mm.
And I'm speaking about that personally, right? For me I don't build trust necessarily through results and character as much. I probably shouldn't say that way, but to me, my go-to move, if I want you to trust me, the way I'm going to do it is through connection, which means we've got to do this in person and we have to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is compassion. Right? I want to ask about your family. I want to know about your family. And I want to, if there's something that's bothering you, is there something I can do? Right?
Yes.
And it's not necessarily sympathy, but it's empathy.
Sure.
So those are my go-to moves. And I'm the type person. Is that something that you see by interacting? Or am I an anomaly?
Yes. No, you're not an anomaly. No. And it's interesting in what people care about as well. So one of the things that I like to use CliftonStrengths for is conflict resolution on teams. Not mediation officially, but just if you have coworkers that don't seem to get along or have a hard time finding the common ground, or you have tension on your team more than is healthy, that's usually people that are approaching things in a different way. And so how can we be aware of each other's strengths, see those as strengths rather than the conflict? And so conflict resolution is another area that I really love for CliftonStrengths for that reason. So I can say, okay, well, you are an activator. I think that's one of your top 5 strengths. So you like to start things, right? You like to get things started, get an idea, get it going. That's exciting for you. Well, there may be other people that have focus, which is like sticking with something long term, right? So if you have 2 people on your team that are working that way, the focused person may be frustrated that the activator just wants to go without thinking it all through. And then the activator may lose interest, right? When we've been doing it a long time. And so, but they're an ideal partnership, right? Because if you work together, you can see how those 2 strengths would be ideal for each other to work together. That way the activator can continue to do things, to get things going and then move on to the next thing to get it going while the focus person can follow through. And so I think sometimes it's just a matter of identifying those strengths, not like we annoy each other, but like we have different skill sets that are useful to each other. And how do we work together to do that?
Yeah, the analogy that came to mind, I guess the example that came to mind is Steve Jobs. And, he was the visionary.
Yes,
and
right.
Ballmer was the implementer.
Right, yes. And I think it's important none of us are everything.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be. I think there's just a lot of pressure. I work with nonprofits, and in the nonprofit sector, you have small teams. You have people that are wearing a lot of hats. And I think there's a lot of pressure a lot of times to just be everything to everyone. Yes, of course, as an executive director, I'm a PR expert and an attorney and a CPA and a marketing person and all these others. Sure, of course I am. Yeah. But nobody's everything. And so I think it's a good affirmation that we can lean on each other to get things done and that we don't have to be everything to everyone. And I think there's some freedom in that.
Yeah, I've run into a couple of situations that are similar to that in the disc world. And in behavioral styles, or they color code, right? There's blues, reds, greens, yellows, and there's can be some opposite. And the ones that are the most interesting, I got to be careful how I say this, but the ones that are the most interesting are the ones that are opposites. So the D, the dominance, the reds, they are the sense of urgency, get it done. They're very emphatic, they talk like this, and they look at you and they lean in, right? And they walk fast, they talk fast, right? So there's the dominance personality. Well, their evil twin, right? Their kryptonite is a high S person, and they're a little softer spoken. They talk a little bit slower, and they move slower, they think slower, they make decisions slower, and it absolutely drives the D's bananas. And once they see that, they will weaponize it.
Yes.
So let's go into how using assessments as weapons backfires.
Oof, yes. No. Don't weaponize your assessments. No. In CliftonStrengths, there's no hierarchy of strengths. We always say that. There's no strength that's more important than another one. Yeah. There's none that's more effective than another one. There's none that you can point to and say, oh, well, the person with this strength is going to be more successful. Like, there's none of that. They're all equivalent, and you have, top leaders in every industry with different strengths, that they've used to get there. And so I think that I want to say that clearly first. But also I think the beauty of assessments is we all have unique qualities, right? We all have unique ways of being that are all valid. So just because you don't do things the way I do them doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I think a lot of people go to work or interact with our families or our friends with that mindset of, I am the best. And Alan, I'm going to judge you on how like me you do things. And the more like me you are, the better I'm going to think of you, right? And the more different than me you are, I'm going to think something's wrong with you, right? So I think that if you have that mindset, you're going to weaponize anything, any difference,
right.
You're going to do. But the reality is, of course, that you have different skills that I need because I'm not everything. Nobody's everything. And so I think it takes a little patience and intentionality to sit down and consider that this person has something that I need.
Okay.
It's easier just to say, hey, get it in shape, man. If I'm the D and you're the S, let's go. We got to get some stuff done. But you probably, if you're an S and I'm a D, you probably cause me to have to think about things and think them through and take a measured approach. You're probably sensitive to people's reactions to things in a way that I am not. So you have something that I need. So I think it's finding the common goal and how we each play a part.
Yeah. I guess the saboteur of whatever assessments that we're talking about, and there's others out there. There's Colby and there's Myers-Briggs, and there's tools out there available. The one thing that I find that is the most challenging is the saboteur of passing judgment.
Oh, yes.
No matter what strength you have, and to me, especially when it comes to the world I live is in exit planning. And when it comes to transition of the leadership, whether it's a family succession, like, well, he's not his daddy, all right, that kind of thing, or it's somebody buys the company and that person isn't the same strength or behavioral style as the past person, that transition there can be dreadful.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that in nonprofit work a lot because turnover in executive positions is high in nonprofits. And so that's not an owner, but it's your top leader. And I have had many clients who've had that turnover in their top position with people that are very, very different and do things in a different way. And it can be jarring. For the team to have to suddenly, oh, well, this was always the way, this person approached this with this approach, and this person now wants all this analytical data, and we're not used to that, and that's stressful. And, so I think just having an assessment of some sort that helps you all understand people can help be a little bit of an ointment on the burn, right, of that turn.
Yeah, that's one area that I am very careful about when it comes to transitions. And when people go through exit planning in the world that I operate in, is part of it is who's going to be leading the charge and how is this team used to operating, are the strengths differently, and introducing the team to the new set of strengths so that they understand and appreciate it instead of push back on it.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the art of what we do.
Yes, it is an art.
Yeah.
I feel like the assessments are the science, but the application is the art.
Yeah. I've seen, and I've had clients in the past who are like, hey, Alan, we're good, thanks. We got this. Well, what I found out later was they were going online and getting the free version of DISC, and they're handling it themselves, right? And like 2 years later, they're like, hey, man.
It didn't stick. I don't know why.
I need some help. Can you come in and and I'm like, who are all these people? I said, well, it was like 7 new people I never knew existed. They're like, yeah, we've got some issues we need to work through. I'm like, oh,
yes,
shocker. Right?
Yes.
So they had some knowledge, but it's not their world. Right. And it's, I don't hire a dentist to fix my car.
Right. Right.
Right. And we have skills and this is some self-promotion. We're self-promoting, but you hire a mechanic to fix your car. You hire a dentist to fix your teeth. When it comes to your team, there's some people out there like us that we do to help do that.
Yes. And I love what you said the last time I was here. You said it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle, which I love, which is something that has stuck with me and I have used since then. But it's helpful to have an outsider also just come in because you can participate if you're the leader, right? Yeah. If you're trying to facilitate, you can't really be a participant. And an outsider can see things that are unique about your team or that are particular about your situation that you may not consider to be unique or particular because you're in it every day. And so I think with nonprofit, I work with a lot of nonprofits. We coach for-profits and nonprofits, but I work a lot with nonprofits and everybody's just putting out fires every day. It's hard to take a step back and see the picture of these 12 fires that we had put out today, 5 of them could have been avoided if we had approached this a little differently, right? And so I think it's preventative health for your team to be able to do this kind of assessment with a person that knows how to interpret the results.
Yeah, and the other to further go down that path is continuing to use the language in their cadence of meetings, whatever they are, use it or lose it type.
Yes. And I love, coaching teams and individuals. And then once I know their strengths, you see them play out. It becomes obvious once you've talked about it. And I'll say, oh, wow, that was a great includer strength you just used. Way to go. Way to go, woo. I see that coming out right now. So it's fun. It gives you another way to recognize, the good things that your coworkers do.
The gentle reminders.
Yeah. And we all want that. We all want to be validated, in what we're good at.
We like to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yes, of course we do. Well,
this has been great conversation.
Yes, thank you for having me back.
Thank you for coming on. And this, the thing, I guess the takeaway, well, one, share, how, if people need to find you, let's do that.
Sure. Of course. I'm Melanie Palmer with Melanie Palmer Consulting. We do CliftonStrengths individual and team coaching for for-profit and nonprofit businesses and teams. You can find us at melaниepalmer.com. Just reach out.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you for teaching me about myself with the disc.
Well, I'm glad. One last thing that I will say is the more knowledge that you can add about yourself.
Yes.
And understanding others.
Yes.
Because communication takes place on the listener's terms.
You're right. Yeah. You got to start with the person in the mirror.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me.